Hello and welcome to another Sayduck platform tutorial video, this time on tiled textures. In this video, we'll be going in-depth bit on tiled textures, talk about what they are, how to use them, and everything related. So, let's begin. Here I have a few examples of the tiled textures, and let's start with the fabric texture. So, what is a tile texture? Tile texture is an image asset that is made, or a texture that is made so that you can repeat the same pattern as many times as you want with the tiling feature. So example, I have the fabric. I can repeat this fabric texture like 10 times. Maybe that's a bit too much for this example. But as you can see, this is a very efficient way to make textures because on tile textures you can use very low resolution images, so less data, and still retain like a 4K quality. When using tile textures, you should pay attention to the asset file. So for example, here is the tile texture I'm using on this one. As you can see, this is still 600 kilobytes, but as I see that there's and this is a like 1K texture, so you can even optimize this one, and that can simply be done by downloading it, taking it to Photoshop, just taking one corner of it, and taking it to the other image. Then you just export it, and there you have saved yourself at least some amount of data. Also, you should play around with the quality, because this is a very easy way to reduce any texture, and usually it doesn't affect that much the visual result. So you should always try to get your textures as low quality and or low data as possible without affecting the visual quality. Perfect. Once you've exported it, you can just upload it to the platform and then assign it to your material, and then just adjust by adjusting the tiling value here. You can get the same result as the heavier texture. Perfect. Now let's talk about a bit other textures on the fabric texture. So this one actually has a roughness map that you can use, but on fabric textures you should always check that the texture assets that you're using actually give you the visual result that you're looking for, because using a texture will always add data to your product. So if you can remove textures, it's always advised. For example, on this material, the normal map actually does not add any visual result, because normal map usually works with materials with roughness values. Actually, on this one you can't even see that much. So if the textures that you're using don't give you the visual result that you're looking for, just remove them and use the roughness values. Perfect. Now for wood. A wood tile texture is a bit harder to create than a fabric, because the pattern is not like completely repeating. As you can see in the wood, there are few like differences. So if I were to add tiling to this, I can see that some parts of it will be starting to repeat here, which is not optimal. But on wood tile, you should usually use only the X or the Y, depending on what way the wood is going. Similar to a roughness map, it adds a bit to the texture, so it's not as like clean, but this is of course depends on what you're looking for. Now on metal. On these ones I have a few extra textures, and I can show you like the benefits of each one. So base color is pretty explanatory, so without it you would not get any visual reference. So adding it's beneficial. The metalness map on this one differentiates the metalness values on the this like breaks. So if I were to remove it, it's not as high quality, I guess. So that's all, of course, but of course adding that adds data to your product. So you should always think if this texture is needed. On this one, it has a better representation of the roughness map. As you can see, here are parts that are not that shiny. So if I were to remove this roughness map, then you can see that the glossiness would be all around. So this is an example where the roughness map actually adds value to your material. It's this one. Perfect. Now let's move to the normal map. Here, as you can see, also a good example in which normal map actually makes a difference. But note that the efficiency of a normal map on this texture will reduce once you increase the tiling value somewhat. So if I increase it like 3.3 and then remove the normal map, the effect is a lot more minor. So if you are looking at the texture from afar, then you should consider if adding the normal map is required. Same thing on here. It is a good example in which you have like very differences with the rusty parts and the metallic parts, and with metalness and roughness you can actually highlight this very efficiently. So if I were to remove that one, the roughness on this one makes it part of the metal and the effect is not as distinguished. So it's recommended to use on this one. As for the normal map, in this one it's used to break a bit the surface details. So I think it's this one. As you can see, it adds a bit like bumpiness to it. So but again, this adds data, so you should consider if it's worthwhile. If your customers are going to be zooming very closely to your material, then it might be worth it. But if they're looking at it from a distance, then I recommend just removing. And then for our final example, here we have a great example in which normal map is like a must-have, as these details, the diamonds, are mostly done using the normal map. So if I were to remove it, as you can see, those are removed completely from the material. So in this one, you would require it. And as there are like a lot of differences, then the other ones are also required. Except, as you can see here, this metalness map is obsolete since it's simply a plain texture. So it adds data and you can get the same result by just removing it and having the factor as 1. Perfect. That's more or less on tile textures. See you in the next one.